Hey, welcome. Today we're diving deep into the liver, but maybe not in the way you'd expect. We're going to talk about how we can use simple sound waves to listen in on the liver's incredibly complex highway system of veins and arteries, and what those sounds tell us when that system starts to break down. So take a look at this. At its heart, the liver is just a massive processing plant for all of your blood. The best way to think about it is like a giant city's traffic system. But what happens when there's a major traffic jam? You know, when things get backed up, gridlocked, or even worse, when traffic starts going the wrong way down a one-way street. That's exactly what we're going to unpack. This is the normal, expected, healthy direction for all the incoming traffic. So before we can even think about spotting problems, we have to learn the local language. We need to understand the basic rules of the road for this highway system. We have to know which way the traffic is supposed to be going. All right, first up, we've got this word, hepatopetal. All it means is that blood is flowing toward the liver. Think of it as cars on the on-ramp heading into the city to get processed. And then, of course, there's its opposite, hepatofugal. This means blood is flowing away from the liver. This is the off-ramp. It's the normal way for all that processed blood to exit the city. But, and this is the huge but, if you see hepatofugal flow on an on-ramp, whoa, that is a massive, flashing red light that there's a serious pileup ahead. Okay, so that's the theory. But how do we actually see all this traffic moving around? Well, for that, we need to open up our Doppler toolkit. We've got three main tools in our belt. First up is color Doppler. Think of this as your GPS traffic map. It shows you which way things are moving, usually in red and blue. Then there's spectral Doppler. That's our radar gun. It tells us exactly how fast that traffic is going. And finally, power Doppler. This one is super sensitive, and it's perfect for detecting even the slightest movement when traffic has slowed to a crawl. You put them all together, and you get the whole picture. All right, tools in hand, let's hit the road. But to spot a traffic jam, you've got to know what normal rush hour looks like, right? We need to figure out the baseline for a healthy, happy liver. Okay, check this out. This is our map of the liver's main highways. You've got two on-ramps, the hepatic artery and the much larger portal vein. On both of these, blood is supposed to be flowing in, which is our hepatopetal flow. Then you have the off-ramps, the hepatic veins, where blood flows out, or hepatofugal. This right here is what a normal, healthy system looks like. Now this table, this is basically your cheat sheet for a healthy liver. And it's super important because each vessel has its own unique sound, its own sonic signature. The portal veins flow is monophasic. It's just a steady, calm river. The hepatic artery, on the other hand, is pulsatile. Boom, boom, boom. You can literally see the heartbeat in those sharp peaks. And the hepatic veins, they're triphasic. Kind of complex, right? It's a three-part wave that's basically dancing to the rhythm of your heart, filling and squeezing. Getting these distinct signatures down is absolutely key. Okay, so we've got our baseline. We know what normal looks like. Now for the really interesting part. Using all that knowledge to spot the telltale signs of disease when the whole system goes wrong. So let's start with the most common culprit. What actually happens when a huge traffic jam forms inside the liver and the pressure starts to build up and up and up? This condition is called portal hypertension. And believe me, it is at the root of so many liver diseases. The first, and honestly the most straightforward clue, is just the size of that main highway itself. A normal portal vein should be 13 millimeters wide or less. But when that pressure builds up, that vein starts to stretch out, kind of like a water balloon. So if you see anything over 13 millimeters, you know there's a backup somewhere. But it's never just one thing, is it? A big traffic jam causes a whole chain reaction. First, the flow slows to a crawl. We're talking less than 16 centimeters per second. We already know the vein itself gets wider. Then, the pressure can get so intense that the flow just stops, or even worse, it reverses direction completely. And this backup doesn't just stay in the liver, it starts affecting the neighbors, leading to a swollen spleen and all this fluid building up in the abdomen. And that brings us to the ultimate red flag. I mean the point of no return. When you see blood in the portal vein flowing the wrong way, hepatofugally, away from the liver, that's it. That means the traffic jam is so bad the cars have literally given up and are heading back down the on-ramp. This is a really bad sign, and you often see it in very advanced liver disease, like cirrhosis. Okay, so now we know how to spot the individual clues. Let's put on our detective hats and see how we can piece them all together to solve some real clinical mysteries and actually diagnose what's going on. And our first case is a classic one, cirrhosis. What's happening here is that the liver tissue itself becomes hard, scarred, and stiff. So imagine all those city highways suddenly becoming narrow, bumpy, and full of potholes. It's going to be incredibly hard for traffic to get through. And cirrhosis leaves a really specific fingerprint on the Doppler. In the portal vein, you see all those high-pressure signs we just talked about. It gets bigger, flow gets slower, and it might even reverse. The hepatic artery? Well, it has to push a lot harder to get blood through that stiff liver, so its resistance goes way up. And the hepatic veins? They lose that nice, complex triphasic wave. That stiff liver just dampens everything, and the flow flattens out into a simple, monophasic pattern.
But hold on. What if the traffic jam isn't actually the liver's fault? What if the problem, the big backup, is starting way further down the road? At the heart? That's exactly what we see with right heart failure. So when the right side of the heart is weak, it just can't pump blood out effectively. And this creates a massive backup through the whole system, which you can see clear as day in the liver. The IVC and the hepatic veins get all swollen and dilated, and that pressure from the failing heart pushes backward, creating this really exaggerated, pulsatile, almost to and fro sloshing pattern in all the liver's vessels. It is a totally different fingerprint from cirrhosis.
So when you put it all together, you can really start to see how these different patterns become diagnostic clues. By looking at the flow, the direction, and the waveforms in all these vessels, we can figure out if the problem is starting inside the liver, like with cirrhosis, or if it's being caused by a backup from outside the liver, like with heart failure. You know, in the end, it's so important to remember that these lines, these colors, these squiggles on the screen, they're not just data. They are the liver's story. It's like a cry for help, written in the universal language of blood flow. And being able to read that language, well, that can make all the difference.